This is a BBC podcast. You can get all our podcasts and our terms of use at bbcworldservice.com/podcasts.
This podcast contains content that some people may find disturbing.
BBC World Service. I'm Mike Williams with The Why Factor. Why do we do the things we do? This week, coming of age. Why do societies across the planet mark a special single day as the point when a child becomes an adult? We'll bring you two stories of the day that two girls were declared to be women. Stories with two very different outcomes. This is Rosie's Beauty Parlor here in San Antonio in Texas, a low pink building on West Commerce Street. And Cassandra Delgado is getting her hair done. She's been here this Saturday morning since 6 o'clock with her mother. Her sister's coming too. Her grandmother will be along soon. And her day will finish in about 20, maybe 24 hours. It's a very special day for her. This is the Mexican quinceañera. Cassandra.
Yes.
The quinceañera.
Uh-huh.
Uh-huh. Tell me what that is.
A quinceañera is like when you turn 15 and basically you're going from a child to a lady, and it's just like a big old party where you dance and everything. It's like a tradition. It's like everybody has one.
Where does it come from?
Mexico?
The quinceañera, or the quince, has moved from South and Central America to the Hispanic communities of the USA. And as it's moved, it's mutated too, where once it was a ceremony to introduce a new, marriageable woman into the community. Here and now, it's become a celebration of a girl in transition. In a town like San Antonio, where about 2/3 of the population is Hispanic or Latino, the quince is common. Now, I heard this, somebody told me this was like a wedding without the groom.
Yeah. It's big. Like you have big dress, big cake. And
big hair by the look of it.
Yep. It's kind of like a wedding.
What does it mean for you?
I guess just that I'm bigger now. My mom's going to take me differently now. That I'm older and mature and stuff.
And that happens in one day, does it?
In my head, yes.
I can hear your mother laughing.
Yes,
yeah.
I do.
She's not quite convinced that in one day you change to a woman.
I will.
Yeah?
Yeah. By tonight, hopefully.
What's going to change in you? I'm going to speak to your mother in a moment. There's no use looking over to her for clues. The relationship with your mother, you say you think will change. What about other people?
Well,
what about boys?
Boys. Well, no, I'm just kidding. Well, I'm not allowed to have a boyfriend yet until I'm 16. So that hasn't come up yet.
Are you excited?
I'm excited, yeah. I just want to dance. I like to dance.
And I think on that it's probably time to turn to your mother, Araceli Delgado.
Yes.
A big day for you and an expensive one by the sound of things.
Yes.
What's it about for you?
She's not a baby no more. She's not going to be a baby no more. She has to be more responsible, more mature, more making her own decisions, what is right, what is wrong.
I guess it must be an emotional day for you
Yes.
to see your child. Yeah.
It took me a year to do all this, to organize everything, to put it all together. It took me a year.
I'm not going to ask how many dollars.
We spent a lot of money.
Do you think it's going to be worth it?
Yes.
I'll see you in church.
Okay, thank you.
All right, very good. Let's begin in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit.
I am Father Gilbert Tobin, the pastor of St. Mark de Porres Church here on the west side of San Antonio.
Father Gilbert, what's the significance of what we've seen today? What's it for?
The significance of the quinceañera is an old tradition that goes back, I think, in the Indian time, where the tribe somehow celebrates the becoming of age of one of their members, and especially the woman, because the woman is the greatest asset to the tribe. In our modern times, they have commercialized that and they make all kinds of parties and everything possible around it with limos and all that. But still it remains in the family a moment of transition, a passage, and somehow for the parents it's also an investment in their daughter, because they give her now a quinceañera, it costs a lot of money. So the parents somehow expect and also like a return that girl will take care of them later on when they grow old.
Why do they come to your church?
They look at the girl as a gift from God. So now that she will become, like a full-fledged member of the community, it's like an asset given by God to the community. That's why they do first a mass usually, or a prayer or a blessing, and then they have the big party, eating and drinking with mariachis and dancing, and sky is the limit.
The youngsters dance into the night and the older ones sing along with the mariachi band. There are seats in the hall for 500 people. The tables are dressed in cloth of blue and pink, and in the centre of the room, Cassandra sits on an ornate throne, pink too. There's food and drink, and there are gifts, lots of gifts.
Okay, we have the pillow sponsored by Miss Emma C. Estrada. Okay, we have the ring.
The list of sponsors is long. Friends, neighbours and colleagues who've all helped to make this day happen. This is not just about Cassandra, it's about reinforcing a sense of community and remembering a shared heritage. But of course, Cassandra is at the centre of the ceremony, and it culminates with a final dance with her father.
You've had me wrapped around your finger since the day you were born.
Larry, big day.
Big day. Huge.
Tell me about that dance with your daughter at the end.
It's the last dance. They become a woman. From a girl to a woman, and you just pass it on. From here, they get married later on down the line after they finish college.
You got plans for them, huh?
Yes, sir. They got to be successful. They got to work with their brain, not with their back like me.
Are you a little bit sad today at all?
Oh, yeah, of course I'm sad. But also I'm happy that my daughter, we got through this. We're not done yet, but we're going. We got it going.
What made you sad?
Well, I always, when you have that last dance, it always breaks me apart. My daughter was crying. When she cries, it makes me cry, so it's a big change.
Lots of societies around the world have a sense that these changes need to be made, that they don't just happen naturally, that the woman is going to be very different from a young girl. And in Western society, we tend to assume that somehow we all just grow up and get along. But in other societies, people feel that these things need to be socially made.
That's Henrietta Moore, Professor of Anthropology at Cambridge University in the UK. Cassandra's life won't be much different tomorrow. There'll be bigger changes when she passes various legal milestones in the coming years. When she reaches the age of consent at 17, is allowed to cast a vote at 18, allowed to drink beer at the age of 21. It's here in America that the very notion of the teenager was invented, sometime after the Second World War. And in this modern society, the reality is that the transition to adulthood is a slow one, dragged out for years. Thomas Eriksson is a professor of anthropology from Norway.
Puberty is a difficult time for everybody because when you are in that phase, you don't really know who you are. You're adult, you're a child, you're neither of these. There are a lot of changes taking place in your body, so it's considered a dangerous period in many traditional cultures because it is a time when people are somehow not fully members of society, when they can see themselves and their society from the outside. And for this reason, most traditional societies have these elaborate rituals whereby they bring people through puberty really quickly so that you make the transition from childhood to adulthood as fast as possible and emerge as a responsible adult.
So you say it's a dangerous time. Is that a dangerous time for the individual or a dangerous time for the society in which that individual lives?
Well, I guess you could say both. So it's dangerous for the individual because you don't know who you are, so you could do foolish things, and it's dangerous for society because the basic values of society could be challenged exactly by those people.
I went to a quinceañera in Texas, a Mexican quinceañera. The young girl turns 15 and there's a remarkable party and remarkable amounts of gifts.
Yeah.
Yet in the West, an event like that actually doesn't change your life much. You don't really stop doing everything the day you theoretically become an adult.
You're absolutely right. I mean, you have your quinceañera, and it's a big party, and you have a new dress, and you wear makeup, and there's dancing and food and gifts. But then, I mean, on the Monday, you go back to school again, as usual, as you always did. Whereas in the past, maybe only a generation or two ago, and maybe still in some rural communities in Latin America, the quinceañera marks that the young woman is now ready to be courted by young men. So she's brought out into, as it were, what they used to call society.
In many societies, there's a very strong idea that the differences between men and women which exist physically are not really enough to ensure successful sexual reproduction and fertility. So quite often in those societies, there's an idea that these mechanisms of marking the body, which are indeed very dramatic and very painful and very traumatic, are also about specifically making men out of boys, making women out of girls.
I learned at the age of 10 that I must be cut and married. I didn't want to be cut. I couldn't tell my friends my feelings because they would laugh at me and tell others.
This is Susie, 17 years old, one of the Maasai people of East Africa. We met in Kenya and she agreed to talk to me about the day she was cut, the day she became a Maasai woman. I should warn you that what follows is quite explicit. Susie and I talk about her coming of age, a first step on a fast road to marriage and motherhood. There are more than 100 million women and girls around the world like her, girls who had a knife, scissors or razor blade taken to their genitals and the clitoris partially or completely removed. It's said to keep the women chaste before marriage and faithful afterwards. Susie isn't her real name, and this is not her home. We met in a hotel in a busy, dusty town, far away from anyone who might recognise her.
Between the ages of 12 and 14, it is time for Maasai girls to undergo initiation. After she is cut, a girl stays in the same place in order to heal, and then she can get married.
You were cut. You were genitally mutilated as part of the initiation ceremony. Is that right? Yes.
A day before the cutting ceremony, they shaved me. The next day, they woke me up around 3 a.m. to have shower with very cold water. It is really cold. The whole body becomes numb. I'm kept outside, stayed outside until sunrise. At around 6 o'clock, they cut me.
Why did they do this to you? Why did they do this to all of the girls? Do you know?
They believe that unless you are cut, you will not be considered an adult. After the cut, they told me to stand up, and I did. They celebrated and said, "Now you're a woman."
So this mutilation happens, you suddenly, instantly become a woman, and a few months later, you're available for marriage.
I stayed there for 1 month, and when I recovered, they found a husband for me. They, my husband's family, brought cattle. My parents received this and told me, "This is your husband, go with him."
And what was in your head at the time?
I did not want to get married at that time. I wanted to go to school first.
Did he treat you well?
My marriage life was a misery because my husband treated me like a maid, not as a partner. I stayed at my husband's home for 1 year. I didn't want to stay there, and I managed to escape. I went to my sister's home in the hope she would hide me.
So when you escaped and got to your sister's, what happened then?
My sister sent me to her friend's home to hide me. I stayed there for 1 year and 2 months.
And what of your parents? Have you spoken to them? I don't know. You shake your head. The Maasai is a very close-knit community. Are you still part of it?
No, because I betrayed them. I didn't follow their rules.
If you could make things different, what would you do?
I think a girl should be given an opportunity to grow up, to go to school, to understand what is important in her life, and to be allowed to choose her partner, and not for them to be chosen by her parents.
You became a bride when you were just a girl. Do you consider yourself to be a woman now?
I am not a woman. If I go to school and find a job, I will feel like I'm a real woman, and then I can get married.
Susie and Cassandra, two very different stories that tell us a great deal about two very different societies. Both of them have rituals to manage the transition from child to adult. But in one, autonomy is gradually granted to the girl child. In the other, control over her is passed from the parents to her husband.
You've been listening to The Y Factor with Mike Williams talking to the Delgado family.
From a girl to a woman, you just pass it on.
Father Gilbert Obeen.
It's like an asset given by God to the community.
Thomas Hyland Eriksson, Professor of Social Anthropology at the University of Oslo.
It is a time when people are somehow not fully members of society.
Henrietta Moore, Professor of Anthropology at Cambridge University.
Making women out of girls.
And a 17-year-old girl called Susie. The email address is yfactor@bbc.com.
There are dozens of different podcasts now available from the BBC, including news, documentaries, science, business, arts and sport. For details of them all, go to bbcworldservice.com/podcasts.